What's up, guys? Brad Thomas with NBC Sports. I'm with Vaughn Dalzell and Eric Froton, and this is Week 2 College Football Live Q&A. I don't know about you guys, but last week I was taken to the cleaners. I was only 1-2, but it felt kind of embarrassing to kick things off with a losing day. But Eric, you held tough last week with a 5-2 record. Is there any highlights you guys want to talk about Week 1? Something that stood out to you?
Well, the highlights that I want to talk about is you and Vaughn's incredible, amazing, life-changing sunglasses game, which is why I'm here bringing it, because I want to make sure when you guys are out putting your posts and you got the yellow, you got the rose, that I'm bringing it a little bit too. But that being said, yeah, 5-2 last week, 5-1 on my props plays. Felt pretty good, and had a great night last night in that New Mexico Boise State game where I swept.
Oh my God!
5 different props plays. 4 of them were on New Mexico, the unders, and then the George Herlani over 60.5 rushing yards. So feeling good. 13-3 on my props plays entering today. So hopefully we can keep the train rolling.
Yeah, and I'll just start out here. Vaughn sucked. I sucked. 2-6 last week in the debut. App State. Just really set it off for us in the day. It was tough. We did hit our second biggest bet, which was Tulane. But other than that, a lot didn't go right for me on Saturday. It was definitely just one of those days. We all have 1 or 2 weeks throughout a season where nothing seems to go right that day. But I feel like I got that out my way. So I'm pretty happy with that. I like this card a lot. UCF did me no justice last night when they looked like they could have ran away with it in the first half. But I was in Vegas, so Vegas won, Vaughn 0. But you know what? We'll get it back today. So, Brad, why don't you kick this thing off, baby?
Yeah, man. I will say I want to highlight the Notre Dame-Ohio State game. That game was absolutely insane. But moving forward, we're going to kick things off, and we're going to talk about probably the most anticipated 20-point spread game of the season, and that's Alabama at Texas. Alabama's a 20-point favorite. The line's moved a little bit. Some books 21.5. The total set at 64. Vaughn, let me start with you. I know this is your best bet, and I want to hear why.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one. I mean, it's tough to tell everybody why to bet Alabama because it seems so obvious. Alabama is that talented, best team in the country. Arguably with Georgia, after we saw what Ohio State did to Notre Dame, I think we can consider Alabama and Georgia as the best 2 teams in the country. And with that being said, Quinn Ewers makes his second career start against Alabama. Good luck, my guy. Nick Saban, 13-1 ATS in his last 14 against non-conference Power 5 teams. So, the Big 10s, the Big 12s, ACC and Pac-12. And Steve Sarkisian, he gets to face his former guy. But unfortunately, Steve Sarkisian last year, 0-4 ATS in on the money line as an underdog last year. So I'm all on the Roll Tide train. I play this at 19.5. And we see it out to 21.5, I would advise to buy back the half hook and get the 21.
Yeah, I have quite a few plays in this game. I'm going to start with this play is no longer available. The line now is 13.5, but I locked in Alabama first half minus 11.5. Man, listen. So one thing about Nick Saban, I'm going to throw out this trend that has been going around the Twitterverse. Alabama under Nick Saban in the first 5 games of the season as a favorite of 22.5 points or less is 26-6 against the spread. And so when you look at trends like that, especially I know you guys are stat guys, you want to dig a little bit deeper. So I was like, how do they start those games? When you go and you look, they're hitting at over 75, 85% if they score on a touchdown on their first possession. So I'm saying they start fast. So I wanted to see how they covered of spreads more than 10 in the first half, and they covered in almost every single game as a favorite of 10 or more in the first half that fits along that trend. That led me to believe that this Alabama team, without even talking about the names on their roster, is probably the most well-coached first half team in the country. So then we talk about why do we like Alabama over Texas? Texas, we know everyone wants to say Texas is back. Texas is still rebuilding that offensive line. And what that does, that bodes well for Alabama, who has 2 of the best edge rushers in Dallas Turner and Will Anderson in the country, right? So we know what's going to happen from Texas. They're going to have their few big plays because they have Worthy, they have Bijan Robinson, but Alabama is going to be putting pressure on Quinn Ewers every single play. Will Anderson, and I know it's against Utah State, but this is a good Utah State team. It's not like some FCS school. Will Anderson was a factor on every play. Even if he wasn't getting to the quarterback, he disrupted every play. And then I'm on Alabama -20 as well. And my last play in this game, and for those who don't know, I'm a big Alabama guy. Anytime I get a chance to watch the scrimmages, anytime I get a chance to read news about Alabama, one of the names that went under the radar for the main media was Trayshawn Holden. And I wanted to see how many times he was targeted in that first game, right? He's going to be the number 2. In my eyes, I think he has an opportunity to be the number 1. Trayshawn Holden over 55.5 receiving yards. I imagine he's going to get at least 7 targets. And his ADOT last game was absolutely spectacular. It was somewhere around the 11-yard mark, which means Bryce Young is more than willing to throw the ball in those intermediate routes. So those are my 3 plays for them. Eric, do you have anything for the Alabama game?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of game flow, I think what's going to end up happening here is you're going to see Alabama key on Xavier Worthy. And the reason why is because their number 2 receiver in spring, Isaiah Nair, who transferred over from Wyoming, is out for the year. Troy O'Mary, who was very promising last year and looked like he was going to be a factor, got injured. He's been dinged up. We'll see if he's back. I think they go and they take away Worthy and make someone else on Texas beat them. And I think that means we're going to have a steady diet of Bijan Robinson. His over-under is only 68.5 rushing yards. I think he's going to see 20-plus carries this game. I think they're going to need to have him be established because, as you had mentioned astutely, Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, they're going to be coming hot. They're going to be pinning their ears back, coming after Quinn Ewers in his first big-time start. And I think they're going to have to be – you literally have to run the ball to keep those edge defenders honest and keep them at home, keep them setting the edge. So I kind of like the 68.5 over for Bijan Robinson in this game.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, man. Bijan Robinson, he's one of the best backs in the country, but versus Alabama, I might be taking – that might be a pass for me. Though.
Yeah, cool.
What's crazy about that Bijan Robinson line is – last year, Alabama, it was hard for someone to get 85 yards on them, but it's in that kind of blanket. Oh, I see Brian Hamilton's comment, his question. Let's take this we'll transition here. Would you lay the points with Michigan? What is it at 51 now? Vaughn, I know you had a little something to say about this.
52. Someone did just shout out to Kevin. He just said 63.5 is Bijan Robinson's line. I'm assuming that's what he's speaking of. So it has come down a little bit if you want to get the value on there. I also, before we get to the Michigan question, want to give a shout out to El Canal de Rebecca. I will say back to you because I've been working on my Spanish. Buenos dias. Feliz de estar aquí. Happy to be here today. Good morning. So
wow, that was impressive.
I'm still not good at Spanish, as you guys could tell. I got C's and D's in high school in that department. But with Michigan, I would lay the points, man. I'm really debating it. We saw Hawaii play twice.
Yes. And
we saw against Vanderbilt them get destroyed by 50-plus points. Now you're going to go into the big house in Michigan, and I don't even care if they're playing their freshman quarterback because he's going to be fine. They have athletes that are far better than Hawaii, and they're going to move the ball on them. So I don't know if I would lay the over in this game. It's 67 or such, but I would definitely look at laying 52 with Michigan, as wild as it might sound.
If I laid 51 points, I would probably be crying at any bit of adversity. But listen, this is a Hawaii team who returned the second least amount of production in college football. And only team that's behind them is Nevada. This is a Michigan team who, despite losing one of the best college football players last year in Aiden Hutchinson, is still going to have an elite defense, and they're going to run the ball down your throats. I do think Michigan score over 50 points, and how is Hawaii going to score? That's the question. So if you believe Michigan score over 50 points, then I'd imagine you'd really want to lay the points here. Eric?
Yeah, in terms of Hawaii, I mean, I had taken Vanderbilt and outlined it pretty clearly why, and simply 2 returning stars on D, 4 on offense. I've heard rumblings that they could literally shutter the program if the Timmy Chang era doesn't turn out the way they want it to, because that's what Todd Graham does, the departed head coach. He runs programs in the ground, and he did a spectacular job of that in Hawaii. This is basically an FCS roster.
Yeah.
They're traveling from Hawaii to Michigan. It's going to be bad. It's just a matter of how bad. I don't like touching 50-point lines. I'll just say I'm going to pass in terms of betting on this one because it's just such an egregious amount of points. But this is a bad Hawaii team. So
would you look at Blake Corum over 112 rushing yards against Hawaii? Is that a look of yours? That's the only player prop they have available in this game.
Blake Corum. Well, they're going to be splitting carries between him, Edwards. They always do. It's just a matter of does he hit a run? I mean, he certainly could. I wouldn't ever take the under against Hawaii, put it that way, especially with Michigan's Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. So, yeah,
Marty's back. Marty's back. He put the house on Benny last week. Benny didn't cover by like a point or two, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. They should have covered that game, but Air Force is a play today for our guy Marty. 600 rushing yards against UNI. Who's Air Force caught today? Let's see this and break this.
Colorado.
At Colorado, yes.
Yep. Not exactly a G5 team here. This is a Power 5 team. Obviously, Colorado has really big problems. Supposedly starting Brendan Lewis, who is a more dual threat oriented quarterback at under center. They didn't look particularly good at all against TCU last week. I think we all kind of saw that coming.
Yeah.
But with the 16.5 points, I know that Air Force was dominant against UNI last week, but that's 17 points against a Power 5 team that, if you look at the talent level of Air Force, they're one of the least 10 talented teams in the entire nation, but they have such a clean, precise system that Troy Calhoun runs, obviously, and they have experience. I cannot, in good conscience, give up 16.5 points, even though it's Colorado. I know. I don't want to bet on Colorado. I just don't feel comfortable laying all those points for a P5 versus G5 team that is more talented.
I'm going to pull up a stat here in a second, so I'll let definitely Brad take this next one while I pull up the stat.
Yes.
I'm going to see how many times Air Force has been laying double-digit points.
Yes, pull it up for us.
14 or more. We need to see this. So, Brad, you take this one away.
Yes, so can App State get the offense going against the Aggies to take the game to the moon like last week? And Joe, I actually think the question should be asked a little bit different. Can Texas A&M score enough points to take this to the moon? Because if you were to ask me about the total in this game, I truly believe you look at Texas A&M's team total. You can play it in alt lines all the way up to 40 if you want. I believe this Texas A&M team is way light years better offensively than North Carolina. And this is no knock on Drake May. And I don't want to be known as a guy who comes on back-to-back weeks and talks about a guy who's going to probably be a Heisman candidate at the end of the season. But listen, that Sam Houston team they played last week, Texas A&M, is a tough, very tough, sound team. It's not like they were just playing, like I'm going to say this again, some cupcake. And their offense struggled at sometimes. It took a while for them to get going. I think they're going to be able to get going against Appalachian State. Now the question is, will Appalachian State be able to put up some points? I mean, any team who could put up 40 points in one quarter, yeah, I think they can get it going. If you want to take the over, you have no naysay from me because I think that Texas A&M covers their team total and the alt line, which means you just need 2 touchdowns from App State. So yeah, I would take the over, and I think they can get going enough to cover the over.
I like that. I will say that Air Force is 10-0 in their last 10 games when they're laying 14 or more. So money line wager in your parlays, maybe. But against the spread, though, not as ideal. 5-4-1 ATS. They did cover one time last year when they were laying 14.5, though. 2 years ago, 2021, they were laying 18.5 and covered. The one game they didn't cover, where they were laying 40.5. I don't know who in the world was laying 40.5 with Air Force, but you didn't make any money. So lately, Air Force has been covering those big spreads, but, it's a Power 5 team. So as Eric said, it's definitely a little shaky. But, Marty, we're going to have to ride with you, man. I mean, you said you got to stop picking the big favorites. You're talking to me, my guy. I mean, it's hard. Favorites have been cashing the first 2 weeks. We know the dogs are going to be barking at some point. And there's some favorites that I like today. There's some underdogs I like today. I know Brad and I are going to go head-to-head on a couple plays today.
Yes.
I'm finna smack you around, my guy. But great slate.
Well, one is going to win. That's the good thing. It's when you go against each other, someone's going to come out looking good, and it's good fodder for next week.
I will say this in reference to that comment about backing heavy favorites before we get onto the Kentucky thing. This week and the week before is going to be two of the most lopsided weeks in terms of public betting. So it's going to be hard to get away. Like you look at Notre Dame, they're going to get 95% of the money. You look at Michigan State, they're going to get about 89. Alabama's getting about 80. Wake Forest about 79. Oklahoma, I can go on forever. It's because in the first 2 weeks, normally teams don't play good competition. So that's why you see these heavy lines. And most of the times when you have a big favorite, especially against an FCS school, they're going to cover.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too. I look back at last week and I was like, because when you track your bets like we do, you have to try and find what you're good at, what you're bad at. When you're coming off a good day, what do you look at? When you're coming off a bad day, how do you try and bounce back? What bets are you looking at, favorites or such? And, I thought about last week and I was like, you could have just bet FBS versus FCS and make a killing. Like, you just got to wait until Saturday to place those bets, though, because our goal here is getting closing line value, which you saw. And in this game particularly, I got good closing line value because I got Florida at the opening line, 4.5 in the 5s. It's coming out to 6.5 now. No Chris Rodriguez for Kentucky. Kentucky only had 50 rushing yards against Miami of Ohio last week. I already told you guys, Miami, Ohio, just basically there was a 1 minute span that game, opening kickoff. They fumbled and let up a touchdown within a minute. It went from a 3-point deficit to 17. Kentucky sucks in the swamp. 1-10 on the money line, last 11. They don't cover very much. But, Brad, you're telling me Kentucky is, and you're trying to tell me that the same way I was on UCF last night, I'm going to get tricked again with Kentucky covering here like Louisville did. But I don't believe you.
Hey, I think there's a way for Kentucky to actually win this game outright. I wish they had Rodriguez. And when the Rodriguez news came out, I was devastated. But when you are giving out plays on Wednesday, Tuesday, it's hard to, I'm not going to circle back. But listen, I do think this is a bit of an overreaction from Alabama beating Utah. From Florida beating Utah. And I think that win was deserved. However, if we look at that Utah game, you guys said it, and I should have listened more. The coming down to Florida, playing in the humid swamp affected Utah so much. I talked to Will Gray about this too. I couldn't believe how many players were coming out cramping up. This is a Kentucky team who is going to be vastly underrated. Not much changes, even though they're losing their offensive coordinator. They have a dominant quarterback, and I think that they will be able to stay in this game. It's not about winning the game for Kentucky in my eyes. I think that Kentucky is going to want to keep this a one-possession game. Even though they did terrible running the rock last week, they're going to want to run the ball. Teams who want to run the ball, control the pace of the game, especially in a hostile road environment. If you're giving me more than 4 points, I think it's almost an automatic play. Now, let me move on to Anthony Richardson because since we're talking about this game, I want to go ahead and highlight this. A lot of people are talking about Anthony Richardson and how his Heisman odds steamed down. First of all, Lamar Jackson set the bar. I don't think Anthony Richardson will have those stat lines to win the Heisman. I see Anthony Richardson as a 195 and 85 guy, which is 195 passing, 185 rushing. Anthony Richardson impressed a lot, and I don't think Utah was ready for that. Every single game that Anthony Richardson plays is going to be more film that these coaches have on him until Anthony Richardson can prove to be a threat in the passing game, like Lamar Jackson was. Lamar Jackson wasn't a great thrower of the football, but he was a threat in the passing game, which made him more deadly running the ball. I think that it's going to be a team that I'm not going to really just jump on 5 and 6 point spreads. But Anthony Richardson, I am on his over 63.5 rushing yards. Anthony Richardson is the definition of a run-first quarterback. Even in plays that absolutely blow up in his face, he could have a guy, a check down route, but to him, which makes sense when you have the wheels he does, to him getting the first over a 5-yard check down with his legs is something that's going to win Florida football games. So that's why I'm backing this. As long as this number stays under 70, I think it's going to be safe. And in terms of sacking, talk about this guy doing well to avoid sacks. And that's the worst thing about backing a quarterback in college football is sacks. This guy is
not as good as Jeff Sims, though, avoiding sacks. I'll tell you that.
It's going to be a highlight film. So I'm only playing this for a half unit. I'm going to need to watch him a lot more. But, yeah, I'm on Kentucky, and I'm on Anthony Richardson rushing yards.
I like that. The only thing I'll say is, one, I told you so, about them going down and not having anything. They don't know how to approach Anthony Richardson,
Yeah.
whereas opposed Florida could have looked at the Utah tape from last year with all those guys back, and that was the advantage in that game. Of course, being the swamp as well. So that's the only thing I'll say about that. I do like this play. But Eric, you got tons of player props, bro. And basically, I think everyone that's watching this show, like 80% of the audience is like, yo, Eric, come on, feed us. So just do it, man. Just give us one.
All right. Well, for that particular game, I like Cavassier Smoke under 65.5 rushing yards. A lot of that has to do with, obviously, we mentioned Chris Rodriguez. They were pretty ineffective running against a light Miami, Ohio front, and now they're going there against Florida, which in terms of, overall talent, they're a top 10 team in terms of their entire roster, probably top 5 in terms of their defensive overall just talent. I think they're going to have a hard time running the ball against Florida if they couldn't do it, obviously, against Miami, Ohio. And when you're splitting carries, Juton McClain as well as Cavassier Smoke, both of them kind of splitting carries. I think they're going to siphon carries off of each other. You got to get 65.5 yards. I don't really see that possible. Also, Will Levis, I wanted to kind of get into this. We're talking about Anthony Richardson a lot and what he can do and what he can't. We're not talking about Will Levis, okay? I am maybe not as enamored as other people in Will Levis's passing acumen. Sure, he's big. He's 230 pounds, 6'3". When he runs, he's bowling people over, similar to Richardson without the elite jets that Richardson has. But I saw Will Levis in my film study of him leave a lot of balls that either, turnover-worthy plays is how PFF would term them. Too many of those for my taste out of Levis. He tends to leave the ball hanging a little bit in the middle of the field. I think you're going to see those safeties looking for when Levis is trying to beat them across the middle, where he tries to kind of hit some windows that he really tries to fit balls into that he maybe shouldn't. And he has tendency to sail balls too. So where I don't think Will Levis is quite the quarterback that he's made out to be, I do like what I saw of Anthony Richardson. I think he's going to be a real matchup problem. And, Billy Napier gets a big win in his first foray into head coaching for Florida. I'm going Florida.
Would you do KV? Because Smoke's prop line is 59.5.
It goes. They all go down on me every time I post something. It goes. It changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, 59.5. That's why. They went and they posted it. It's important to remember, everybody here, with these props, you see how the game lines move, but the prop lines move far more rapidly. If you think that's much, you have to be proactive. And when those picks come out on Friday, I saw them as soon as I posted my column. Multiple major revisions up and down the board. So you have to be really responsive and just be on the lookout of that on Fridays so that we can avoid this sort of line issue.
Yeah, no, it's correct.
I still like the under.
You hit me up last night, and I'll take the blame for this because you have a play you're going to talk about today. And we finally, so if you guys are on FanDuel, this line's on FanDuel. That's where we do most of our player prop betting for the most part. But there's opportunities to get lines the day before, 2 days before when they come out and they move drastically. Like Eric called me when I was in Vegas last night. And for some reason, DraftKings and FanDuel aren't in Las Vegas.
Because it would keep people from going to the casinos.
And
they know. No, you have to come here. Play the slots. Right.
Because, when I walked in, I was like, well, I can put cash down, or I could just open up my app and bet my app while I'm in the casino, which is corny, but I'm going to do that. And then I couldn't. And then I realized I couldn't place the bet for you. And we lost 10 yards of value. And plus 90 on the ladder play. So,
correct.
Make sure you guys are getting things early. Eric's always on top of it too. But, Brad, I know you had a question too.
Yeah, Eric actually tackled my question. I was going to ask you, I wanted to get your legitimate opinion on Levis. I really do respect how you can break down a player better than 95% of the people in this world. It probably is 99, but I don't want to discredit those 4% of people I don't know. Before we move on into our best bets, I want to invite you guys to play Notre Dame Pick'em. It's Irish Pick'em. Play college football Pick'em on the NBC Sports Predictor app for your chance to win $10,000 every week. It's easy to play, guys. Literally, I play it all the time. You can guess on first downs, touchdowns. You can win big. Just feel free to enter. Go to download the NBC Sports app. $10,000 on the line. And I'll tell you what, I love predictors so much, not because of the fat cash you can win, but because it makes me a better sports bettor. It makes you think about things from a game perspective instead of just lines and spreads. So let's get into our best bets. Vaughn already went over his. Eric, I'm going to invite you. I see you have a play in the Arizona versus Mississippi State game.
I do. I particularly like DJ Williams, a former Auburn running back, former Florida State running back. He's on his third team, and there's a reason why. He had a couple of years ago, he was the preferred, pseudo starter heading into the year after having a couple of big games where he basically just ran bare naked through wide open holes and was the nominal starter. Tank Bigsby came in and checked him in the Cucktown Hotel. He then went over to Florida State. Trayshawn Ward, who is a walk-on, he takes over. He's there now. Obviously, he's not there anymore because crowded room. So he goes over to Arizona. Okay. Last week, it's important to remember there's an unsettled depth chart, and based on what head coach Jed Fish had said, he wanted to get a fresh set of legs in constantly. He wanted to be rotating guys, and he had 4 running backs that got carries. Williams, Jonah Coleman, Michael Wiley, who was an underplay last week for me, and Rayshawn Luke. So there's 38 carries. DJ Williams got 14. He turned in 88 yards against the San Diego State team. It's a G5 defense. Lost their best player in Cameron Thomas, who was a third-round draft pick, and led the entire nation in terms of hurries and TFLs. He was just an absolute demon. He flexed from out 5 down to 3 tech. He was all over the formation. He was an absolute monster. They don't have him anymore, and you saw what happened. Conversely, Mississippi State, all 6 of their starting down linemen and linebackers are back. They allowed only 113 rushing yards per game last year, and they get back Jordan Davis, not that Jordan Davis, but an Alabama transfer who was one of the 5 best JUCOs in the country that got banged up last year, wasn't able to play, but he was a starter. Now he's back. So they nominally have really 4 starters coming back on that line with 3 starting linebackers. I just think with this SEC front, you're not going to be able to push them around like you could an inexperienced San Diego State team that loses their best player, like by far the best player on their team. Okay. Williams was in for 29 of 75 snaps. If he's in there again for that, there's no way. There's just too much of a rotation that they're employing there in Arizona. They're going to go with the hot hand. That's great what Williams did last game, but this is Mississippi State. Give me that under 62.5 rushing yards to the bank.
Good at 58.5?
Good at 58.5.
Let's go.
Let's go. I put it out yesterday. Damn, another 4
I'll move over to my best bet, and it's a player prop. Sam Hartman over 304 passing yards. And this line opened at 299. It had the weirdest line movement last night. When I posted this line, it was at 301, then moved to 304, got as high as 315, came back down. Now it's settling around the 310 number. Listen, so a lot of people asked me about this line, and they said, is Sam Hartman even healthy? And I will say this. Number one, Wake Forest is playing against Vanderbilt, and I don't think Wake Forest is really all too afraid of Vanderbilt, especially they probably would have been a 7.5, 8-point spread without Hartman. If Hartman wasn't healthy, he wasn't going to be playing this game. You do not want to rush back your star quarterback. Also, Sam Hartman's a guy who's going to beat you with his legs. with his arms and not his legs. So I can be okay with a guy being 85% if he doesn't need the physicality to, move the chains. And my last point about the health factor is Sam Hartman, Wake Forest, returning 4 offensive linemen that were starters and 5 in total that got regular minutes. He will be protected. And the main reason I like this, okay, so we're going to look at Vanderbilt last season, who, if you look at just the numbers, Vanderbilt allowed something only like 275 pass yards per game. But then you forget about those games. In 75% of those games, they played either against a primarily run quarterback or they're beat by 30 by halftime in the tactics change. But in games where they either played a pass-first quarterback or games where the team were still in it, the quarterbacks threw for blistering numbers. Emory Jones, who's a run-first quarterback, threw for 278 yards. Will Rogers threw for over 348 yards in a blowout. He got that and didn't even play the entire game. And then Matt Corral threw for 333 yards. Sam Hartman averaged 325 yards per game. And everyone's going to say, yes, what about the wide receivers that Wake lost? Wake Forest is returning a ton of talent on offense. They were deep last year, and he's not going to miss a beat. And even the coach said, I'm shocked how he came back in practice, and I had to start him because he looked like he was ready to play. So I'm backing over 34.5. And if you want to play it at 310, I'm totally cool with 310. When you start to get to 315, it gets a little sketchy because as much as we want to believe Vanderbilt's a really improved program, there is blowout potential in this game, and that can just totally kill it.
Yeah, settle down on a really improved program. They played Hawaii, who we already discussed, and Elon Musk. It's named after Elon Musk, this school. It can't be that great. It must be technically proficient, but I don't see a football team coming in. Plus, keep in mind, Vanderbilt set a record, a modern record, with 9 total sacks last year, and they didn't add anybody on the D-line to put any heat on Sam Hartman. Yeah, good luck. Yeah, have fun.
Yeah, I'm cool with that one too. I like that over a lot. I mean, we already saw that spread jump like 6-7 points when he got announced. I mean, he's fine. Like they said, he's cleared. He's been like he looks good. I mean, I'm sure he'll have a day. He's probably not going to run very often. Get a lot of quick passes out there. Go deep a couple of times. I am definitely good on that one. I do want to ask you guys an opinion on a prop that I thought about bringing to the table today. 2 props actually. I got the Eric treatment though on one of them. I had Deuce Vaughn. I took him over 104.5 rushing yards. It's now 118.5.
Yep.
I don't know if I want to play it that high though, or give that out against Missouri, who was one of the worst rushing defenses of the entire country last year, 120th out of 130. But you could still get Adrian Martinez to get a rushing touchdown at plus 105 on DraftKings. I kind of feel like there's value there. I mean, he was terrible last week throwing the football. 11 of 15 for 53 yards. You determine if that's terrible or not. But he did have 13 rush attempts, 39 yards, and scored a touchdown against South Dakota. Obviously, South Dakota. But I really think Adrian Martinez could find his way to the end zone today. And Deuce Vaughn's over 1.5 touchdowns at plus 175. Kind of like that too.
Sure. In terms of regarding Deuce Vaughn, that 118.5, it's a little high for my taste. Simply the fact that Vaughn is an Deuce, not you, Vaughn. The Deuce.
We're both all-purpose type of guys.
You are.
Let's get that straight. We count 4 or 5 sports. We're all-purpose over here.
Well, Mr. Vaughn is an all-purpose back who could very well go and dominate in the air game as opposed to between the tackles. And that's an issue because you mentioned Missouri as being one of the worst run defenses in the nation last year. And I'm not here to argue that point. What I will say is after 8 games, they were allowing almost 300 yards per game, with 283 yards per game on the ground. They brought in a seasoned defensive line coach, Al Davis, no relation to the former Raiders owner. And he pretty much turned that defense around, lickety split. For the last 5 games of the season, 139 yards per game, cut it by 150 yards. In addition to went from 6.4 yards per carry to 3.9. So they did have a change in mentality, and it made a big difference bringing in a new D-line coach. So they should be better this year. That being said, as you mentioned with Adrian Martinez, I love his under at 213.5 right now. It is raining cats and dogs in Manhattan right now.
We can lab on that because I kind of felt like that too. Like I was looking at rushing because Missouri is so bad, but like, when has Adrian Martinez actually slung the football?
Yep. Bob said, this
is true.
Danchis, exact same thing I just said about Missouri's D in the second half. I'm with you, Bob. Sorry, continue.
Well, since we're actually on this Missouri game, Vaughn, is this our head-to-head game?
This is our head-to-head game. And I just got a spam caller, probably from someone from Missouri, talking about quit talking so much smack on the Tigers.
I'm here to defend.
So me and Vaughn, we're doing our segment. We go head to head. Last week, 7 was such a boring game. Push, whatever. I'm going to be on Missouri plus 7.5. And if you guys are on NBC Sports Edge, I did a quick write-up on it. So talking about Missouri's defense to start off, it was one of the most misleading defenses in terms of numbers, efficiency, because early in the year, they were awful. Then started to trend up. One thing that I really loved about this game, Missouri's going to load the box. They're not going to let them run between tackles, which means Kansas State is going to have to rely on Adrian Martinez. What was the biggest knock on Adrian Martinez when he was at Nebraska? Turning the ball over, his inability to push the ball down the field with his arm. Missouri, they rank 118th in overall defensive efficiency. And a lot of that had to do with that early performance. And a lot of that has to do with bad field position. So turnovers on their own side, teams scoring on the field position. So basically what defensive efficiency measures is where you start your drive, what kind of quality do you get out of the position you start the drive? One thing that I love that it measures, but a lot of people don't look at, is DTO, and that's defensive turnovers that they create. They were actually top 50 for a team who's bottom 100 to be top 50 in creating turnovers or creating turnover-worthy plays. That makes me love this game for catching an entire touchdown and a half against a turnover machine in Adrian Martinez. I have another play in this game, but I was sold there. I was like, I don't even need to look further.
Hey, I hear you guys. I hear the rushing defense is improved. I hear Missouri will look better. I know you're going to talk about the quarterback situation for the Tigers as well, but I feasted last year fading Missouri on the road, and I will continue to do it until they prove that they can win road games. My friend, you're backing a team that on the road since 2019, they're 3-11 on the money line and 2-12 ATS. But it gets better, Brad. I'm going to call you Bradley for this one, all right? Bradley.
Yes, it gets better.
Missouri is 1-16 on the money line. Their last 17 as a road dog, 4-13 in the ATS in that same span. I continually fade them because they are just not the same type of team on the road. And I get the Adrian Martinez hate. I just looked up his stats while you were talking. He's actually thrown for over 213 yards 9 out of 10 times last year.
Which was for Nebraska. Ridiculous. That isn't Kansas State.
I was going to say, let me get to my point, man.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, and I don't expect Martinez to have to sling the ball against them. Like the Russian defense, sure, you'll say it's improved, but until you run into the all-purpose Deuce Vaughn, he gets loose like my man in the chat said, it's going to be a different situation. So I will take Kansas State minus 7.5 against you. I will take any team that's favored against Missouri Tigers when they're on the road.
This is year 3 for Drinkwitz, and this is the now or never time. He's 12-12 as a head coach, and I think that he is moving this program in the right direction. So sometimes, when I look at teams' history and how they've done, when it's a program that is under a rebuild and going in the right direction, I feel comfortable ignoring some of those trends.
I can't wait to see if Brad's going to be doing a little bit of the Drinkwitz of a little Manischewitz after this wine to celebrate this. We'll see. Yeah. He's a Drinkwitz boy. We'll see how this goes, Brad. We'll see how it goes.
I might as well let me just give my player prop out of this game just since we're already on it. It's Brady Cook over 30.5 rushing yards. I actually had his rushing yard total at 50, and that's not including sacks. We know Kansas State has a good defensive line, but however, Missouri is going to be able to protect. If I were to predict the sack number, it would be 2. As long as he doesn't get sacked for 35 yards, I think that will probably be solid in this number, and that's over 30.5 rushing yards for the quarterback of Missouri.
I like that. I will throw that up here right now because for some reason I didn't have your Brady Cook look in there. But that's what happens when you get back from Vegas. Your flight is for 3 hours from 1 a.m. Nevada time, 4 a.m. Eastern time. So
I will touch on this too.
I like that look.
I will touch on this. Brady Cook against Georgia last year was only sacked one time. Which was really impressive. A lot of it has to do with when you're a quarterback with wheels, you do not want to get sacked. You would rather run the out of the. He did a lot of those 2-yard scampers to the end to the sideline, and all those add up. Let's go to the People's Parlay, Vaughn. I think this is fun, Eric. Vaughn, you start us off with your People's Parlay pick because we already talked about this game. Just go ahead and say it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I need to give you guys a winner first off because App State or UCF last week, that was like abysmal. All right. But we're taking the Kansas State money line for our parlay because, like I said, Missouri 1-16 in the last 17 as a road dog on the money line. Kansas State at home, I feel like it's a great bet. I'm not going to sit here and take all this Adrian Martinez hate. So, that's my leg for the parlay.
No, that's totally fair. Kansas State will probably win the game. I just want to cover. My pick, I'm going to talk about this game later, but it's Oklahoma minus 30. It's minus 180, which I thought was a very valuable price for a parlay leg. Eric, what's your play? We can move to the Oklahoma game after you tell us your play.
Yeah, as far as People's Parlay, I've got a great one that I've been waiting to tee up for this. I've been saving it just for this show, guys. Jimmy Holiday, wide receiver, Tennessee, under 41.5 receiving yards. Now, this is a great one, and there's a reason why. Last week, as we all remember, Tennessee went and throttled Ball State. I believe 59-7. Now, in that game, plenty of players are going to get snaps. They're going to get time. Mr. Holiday ran 12 routes last week from wide. He averaged 5.17 yards per route run. That is certifiably inhuman on a regular basis. And there's a reason why. Because he caught all 4 of his targets. None of them were contested catch opportunities. He was running wide open, no problem. It's essentially throwing against air at this point. And he caught a 53-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter in garbage time for the last score of the game to make it 59-7. Mr. Holiday didn't see the field until the second half, until the game got out of hand, okay? When something like that happens, and now this week they're playing Pitt, they're going to have to play against Pitt. That's going to be a game. They're not playing Ball State again this week, okay? Jimmy Holiday may not see the field. I hope he does. I hope he gets a snap.
Just one snap.
I hope he shows up on punt duty.
Yeah.
You know, he was out there for 10 snaps last game. I love punt duty. We got Ramir Johnson punt duty in the week 0. Yeah. It was glorious.
Yeah.
Best thing that could happen to us is punt duty. So I think you're going to have a steady dose of Jimmy Holiday on punt duty at 41.5 receiving yards under. Woo! We're going full Ric Flair for that one on the People's Parlay.
Let's go.
To quote the great Madonna, Holiday, celebrate. It would be so nice. That's Madge. That ain't me. That's Madonna talking.
Madonna quotes on a Saturday.
And under 34, Bob asks, under 34.5, line it up. Go for it. It would be so nice.
Vaughn, did you have an opinion on this game?
I want to appreciate Bob here because Bob is hopping in. He's very active in the chat.
Yes,
our guy, him and Marty, right now. They're really just giving all the dap right now to Brad and Eric. None to me, but it's all right. When Kansas State wins and this man got to send me a pizza, it is what it is. But I want to talk about this game because this game is very interesting to me. You see USC and Stanford. To be honest with you, I've been looking at ways to fade USC however I can, right? But this position, I felt like getting nearly 10 points is a little bit too much for the home dog because David Shaw, he's been, pretty adequate in his career as a Pac-12 home underdog or just an underdog in general. But against USC, he's much better, and it's weird. He's 6-4 ATS on the money line against them compared to 6-7 ATS on the money line against the rest of the Pac-12. And since 2007, man, they've been very good as underdogs in the series, 7-2. They've been 4-2 as home dogs against USC. So it's just they play a lot better. And Lincoln Riley, there's one stat that stands out to me with him is that he is 5-13 ATS as a road favorite, but as a road favorite of 7.5 or more, he's only 3-11 ATS. And this is his first Pac-12 game. He's going to Stanford. David Shaw, does very well against USC. So I do lean the Cardinals here. I played them at 9.5. I think I will sprinkle a little money line parlay because we do need to make up some ground. You know what I'm saying? I like Pitt and I like Stanford today. I think those are two teams that could likely win outright and you get some good money on them. What do you guys
think? Sprinkling the pixie dust here. I like it.
Vaughn, when I saw you were on this play, I was like, I think that, and I've said this all offseason, that USC are going to come and be overrated every single game you play them. USC is a team that can realistically go undefeated and lose 8 games against the spread because they're going to be overrated. They're going to be the hype team, and you just got to catch the right price, the right number.
Yeah. I mean, if you're against USC at 6.5, that's a good line. That's a very favorable line for you playing USC.
Nice.
But I'd be pretty happy with taking Stanford here. Marty, appreciate you, my guy. I think Eric should have earned your follow last week.
I didn't get last week. I went 5-1 on my props plays, Marty.
Well, I know Marty likes my cap on
Marty like 13-3
USF in Florida because of the heat and the travel.
Yeah.
And why Florida made me look right, USF made me look like an idiot. That was the worst thing I've had in a long time. But definitely appreciate you guys hopping in. I'm glad you agree with the USC game. Dominic Sorry that you're on USC.
Dominic said
We'll see what happens. You can still cash my guy. But where do you guys want to go next? What's the next game?
Let's go to the Baylor game. I think someone asked a question about Baylor, and I want to pull it up. Here it is. Do you think Baylor can be in the college football playoffs?
Ooh.
So preseason, I had Baylor finishing as my 6th ranked team. And, thinking about Baylor, Dave Aranda is a great coach. Baylor lost a little bit, right? They lost a little bit of production. They lost a little bit of talent. But they reload, they retool. The question is, can Blake Shapen take them the distance? Because that defense, while they were freaking amazing last year, will naturally take a step back this year. The question is if you think Blake Shapen can take them to an undefeated season. Well, they have a tough road game against BYU this week where they are a 4-point dog. However, I will say this. After much pondering about this game, I went on 2 podcasts and talked about this game and didn't give out an official pick. I ended up landing on Baylor +4.
Well, it's not +4 anymore.
But it's not +3.5 now, right?
No, it's down. It's below 3. It's a 2.5. Might be 2 now.
Everywhere.
So that
no
was
Puka Nacua. No Puka Nacua and no Gunnar Romney.
5:50 p.m. Eastern time yesterday is when I gave that play out. And since then, it's down to 2.5. Oh, yeah, because the wide receivers were announced while I was on the show.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, I mean, frankly, that was something I was looking at earlier in the week because Nacua was sitting on a boot in their game. Like, he was on the sidelines in a walking boot in the second half. Dude, you're in a walking boot during the game. You ain't playing next week. All right? So that was an easy edge to be able to kind of get a piece of there because that just ain't happening. But good call on your part, sir, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, yes. I like Baylor today too. I know we were all talking about potentially collabing on this if we got a great number that we wanted.
Yeah.
Brad obviously got the best number. Eric, it's going to be up to us to kind of decide what we want to do with this one. But
yeah, I'm in.
You're in.
Still
all right.
Yeah, I have Baylor winning outright.
They
I want to
shouldn't
be
even
clear
be
about
favored.
that.
They shouldn't be getting any points at this point. I don't care if it's on the road.
In that game last week, there was a 2.5, 3 hour lightning delay.
Yep.
Who wants to play after that? And then the first play of the game, BYU takes it 75 yards to the crib. So it's like, I don't believe
on a trick play to Nacua where he weaved his way down the sidelines. Nobody's even near him. And they don't have Nacua.
So, Eric, you're the returning players guy. We got to tell them about this Baylor offensive line.
Oh, yeah. They have a top 10 offensive line in the country, 4 returning starters. In terms of overall line starts, I think it was like 120 roughly line starts. Forgive me if they're not, but this is one of the best O-lines in the country. This is a top 10 O-line, absolutely, and they're going to be brutalizing BU on the line. Now, it's important to remember what happened last year, okay? So keep in mind, Baylor brings back almost everyone. It was one starter. They bring back almost everybody. Additionally, BYU brings back their 3 guys from their defensive line that got manhandled last year by Baylor. Baylor rushed for 303 yards, 6.5 yards a carry against BYU last year, okay? They ran, as a team, 220 yards per game, 5.5 yards per carry. That's ridiculous. Tay Williams, who we're going to be talking about this, I have his over. I went and pegged that back when it was at 68.5. It's now up to 74.5. I still like the over. He averaged 10.5 yards per carry on 17 carries last year, 181 yards. That's ridiculous. Now, is he going to do that again? No. But I watched all of the last game where they played Albany. Tay McWilliams was in there every snap, only being spelled by Squirrel Williams, who is really small. He's about $175 and he's dynamic, but he's the change of pace guy. Tay McWilliams is going to be in. They're going to run the ball down BYU's throat. Give me Baylor all day.
So they have Squirrel Williams and Tay McWilliams. Is that what you said?
Yes. Tay McWilliams is the McDonald's version of Squirrel Williams. Yes.
He's the McDonald's version.
Yes, more hormones pumped into him or whatever it might be. I'm just talking about the burgers, not anything about him personally. That's just a joke.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, we'll lock it up. The collab play, the Baylor Bears. We'll play the +2.5. I'm not opposed to playing the 3, but we'll do another sprinkle. Sprinkle that money line too, baby, while we're at it. I'm all about it. Eric, before we give out our picks, we got 10 minutes to go. So we'll give out all the picks that we haven't talked about yet. But there was one question from Marty. Chase Brown, getting enough carries today? How much do you think? can he hit his over rushing yards? I'll look that up for you and see what it is.
I have an opinion on that if you let me. Chase Brown is going to get his carries. I think Chase Brown's floor is 17 carries in the game. Looney Jr. even said it. And after that first game, everyone, before the first game, they want to talk about how DeVito was going to fit in this offense. They passed more than they were going to all season because they wanted to see what they had in DeVito. In his press conference after that game, he had, he didn't know the split pass to rush, right? He was just like, was it really that close? It was close to 50-50. He said, I can guarantee you one thing. It will not be that close for the rest of the season. And he said, he wasn't saying it because that's how it's designed, but it's because that's how the game's just going to go. Chase Brown is that dude. DeVito might not be that dude. And that's no knock on him. That's no knock on him. He exceeded my expectations, but you could see it in the play calling. It's a lot of screens, a lot of slants. He's not stretching the field. Exactly. I think Chase Brown's rushing total is absolutely absurd this week compared to we literally just got him for 45 yards in week 1. But he will get 17 carries and dude's a stud. So anytime you want to look at his rushing total, look at it. I think he'll get the carries to get there because he has that breakaway speed and breakaway ability, but it's got to be in the hundreds right now, right?
It's 124.5 yards.
Yeah, it's just like,
which is insane. Like that's a lot of points away.
Bomb, guys.
Yeah.
I'm on the under in that game, by the way.
If you like any of the plays that we gave out that could be parlay pieces or a player prop, you could take Chase Brown's rushing touchdown prop and parlay that. That's like a minus 230, which is like a minus 7 home favorite, essentially, So I think that's one way to approach it. But 124.5 yards may be a little too high for me to play, in my opinion. Who wants to take the next bet?
Let's go.
Since we're already talking about the game, I'm on the under 57 points in Virginia at Illinois. Line started out at 54.5 and moved up. I didn't get a chance to check the forecast before this show, but 2 days ago, there was going to be a little bit of weather in the area. I didn't care. Last year, Armstrong threw the ball 45 times. Different regime. Tony Elliott has literally said, when we're up and we have control of the game, we are going to run the football. That is all I need to hear because we already know what Illinois' game plan is going to be. When they're running, they're going to run the ball, and when they're throwing the ball, it's going to be short passes. What does that do? What do us underbettors love? It drains the clock. I think we see this classic 27-20 game coming out of here.
I like that.
Sounds good to me. I'll switch gears onto a couple of my plays. Try to get through these pretty quickly. Rocket Sanders. I'm going back to back. Last week I had Rocket Sanders dominating Cincinnati. Came to fruition. It was 74.5 yards. He destroyed that line. He ran for 120 on 20 carries with 4.5 yards after contact. That is superhuman. And he had 3 runs of 15 or more yards. Keep in mind, last year, as a true freshman, when he was getting his feet wet, he only had 3 runs of 15 yards or more all season long. He had 3 runs of 15 yards or more in one game. Okay? I don't see South Carolina's front that's rebuilt after losing Kingsley and Barre, who was far and away their best interior lineman, or, lineman in general, excuse me. He's an edge, but he's a run setting, a run defender, stout edge. Losing him. Arkansas, identity is running the ball. Rocket 100%. Sanders was blasting through arm tackles last week. Sincerely, if anybody gets a chance, if they like doing their NFL draft homework and you want to do a little bit of Devy work, go and watch Rocket Sanders last week and watch Cincinnati try to tackle him, and he just blew through everybody in their second level. It was a sight to behold. He's going to do the same thing. 84.5 rushing yards is not enough for this run-based offense. Next, Jalen Coleman, Duke. This is an unsettled depth chart kind of a play. 8 carries out of 23 running back totes last week is what Jalen Coleman got. Okay, they only ran for 109 yards. Okay, Jordan Waters averaged 6.5 yards on 5 carries, and he was a superb pass blocker. He was one of the highest rated pass blockers by PFF last week. He's going to get a lot more carries this week against Northwestern. And where you're dealing with a team, they only had 109 yards last week as a team, unsettled depth chart in the backfield against a much better. They played Temple last week. Legitimately, Temple might be the worst team over the past 3 seasons in the entire FBS.
Easily.
Legitimately.
Yeah.
That's a real comment. That's not hyperbole. That's real. Forget it. Now you're going to play an actual real team in Northwestern, coached by Pat Fitzgerald, legendary linebacker. Good luck not playing that game. And lastly, my ladders play that we talked about. Oh, me and Vaughn pounded this.
Yes.
And we could have had it last night. Unfortunately, Vaughn was in Vegas. I blame him for this. Duran Bradley, Texas Tech. He's playing the Mitchell Tinsley role in offensive coordinator Zach Kitley's offense. Mitchell Tinsley went buck wild last year. He's the starting outside receiver at Penn State because Zach Kitley made him that at Western Kentucky last year. Now he's at Texas Tech, and Duran Bradley caught 6 or 7 passes last week for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. He would have caught more, but they took the pedal off the metal. They didn't have to do anything. They had already smoked their overrated FCS opponent. He's at 44.5 yards he opened at. Just an absolute blown line. Blown line at its very essence, especially after Houston got lit up by UTSA last week. You think the UTSA is going to be able to throw more than Texas Tech? Guess what? No. Hard no. So, Duran Bradley, 44.5 receiving yards. This is a ladder play. And what ladders means you can go above, you can have steps. Each 10 yards, you get to say, this line's too low. I think he's going to go more and more and more. I like him up to 80-plus yards. It was plus 370 for him to go to 80 or more yards yesterday. That has gone up. It is now at 50. What did you say the line was at?
It was like 52 and a half, 53 and a half.
52 and a half now, 53 and a half. I think it's gone up 9 yards. And that 80-plus has gone down to plus 260, all right? So this is another reason why we have to be on top of these when we're seeing them. I love the 80-plus yards ladder play out of Duran Bradley. Just cash that money. Get more of that positive line value.
Awesome. Yeah. So can you give us the Jaron Hall player on? I like that one a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I thought you'd never ask. Jaron Hall, BYU quarterback, former pro baseball draftee. I think he was a 23rd round draftee. Has a legitimate arm. I loved his tape when I was watching him this offseason. Handles pressure extremely well. And keep in mind, Baylor loses 3 NFL draft choices from their secondary. Kalen Barnes, who's one of the fastest players in the entire combine. JT Woods was the 3rd round draft pick. And Jalen Petrie, who was my favorite safety in the class last year. He was a monster in run support. They're all gone. Last year, Jaron Hall threw for 342 yards against Baylor. 342 with a stud secondary. Give it to me. 197. I know they're out of 2 of their wide receivers. I get that. But 197.5 yards for a quarterback this talented that's going to have to throw, since I do think Baylor wins. Yeah. I see him playing catch up. He's going to cross the 200-yard threshold. Give me the over.
Yeah, this is easy bread. I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be trailing. It's going to be a competitive game. You're not going to be able to run on Baylor all day. So, yeah, I'll take that one. Brad, you want to hit him with your picks, and I'll round us up?
Yeah, only one I have left. I didn't touch on it enough was Oklahoma. It's up to minus 33 now, and I think 33 is the absolute max I'd play. I think they win the game by 34. This is an Oklahoma team who I think are going to throw the ball a ton. Jeff Lebby loves playing fast, playing with Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel looked good. It was nice to see him reunited with his old offensive coordinator. Venables is going to make this defense play tough. Kent State 2-6 against the spread in their last 8. And then people say that Oklahoma lost a lot, but if you actually look at the returning production, if you take away the production from those big names, they did pretty well in the transfer portal and guys coming back. I think this Oklahoma team is going to be serious. Kent State, I'm not too high on that.
I like that. I want to give a special shout out to Joe Knight. He says, Vaughn, hope you do better this week because kickoff time, well done, roll tide. Yeah, I'm feeling the same way, guys. I think today is the day we do better for sure. Excited about our plays. Overall, some line movement on mine. Obviously, we got Alabama at minus 21 or minus 19.5. It's up to 21. I'd play it there. Yeah. But I do want to talk about Iowa versus Iowa State. Still an available line. You can get 40s shopping around on the under. Of course, it's going to be a snoozer. The under has hit 7 consecutive times when they're at Iowa, 3 straight overall in the series, 6 of the last 7 times in the series. Both offenses terrible. Spencer Petras might be the worst quarterback in all of college football. We will be fading them. We're taking, like I said, Alabama 19.5. We played UTEP at 14. It's up to 17.5.
Yep.
They're playing New Mexico State. I would play the 17 for a unit, but no more than that. I'm on K-State minus 7.5. Stanford plus 9.5. I'm laying the 5 with the Gators. And then we took the Baylor as a collab, Baylor plus 2.5. And since I lost my first money line parlay, I ran it back with Florida and Kansas State.
Nice.
I doubled down on Kansas State, which is probably not the smart move, but we're here for it, guys. And like you guys said, we're gonna have a better Saturday. So
yeah, let's have a better Saturday, guys. Listen, I want to thank everyone who is watching on the YouTube channel. Remember, next week, have your questions ready for Vaughn and Eric. I want to say thank you and have a good football Saturday.
Make money.
Let's make money.